In 20 years of diving, we have explored hundreds of sunken ships. The wrecks that stick up above the surface have been looted or destroyed by the waves. There's nothing in them. They are of no interest whatever. These half-submerged wrecks aren't worth anything. I've never seen one well preserved in less than 60 feet of water.
Munition ship went down in 1941 somewhere in the channel, in about 100 feet.
Few survivors, position badly indicated. Let's try to find it.
Ah, that's a bit like the story of a needle in a haystack. Maybe worthwhile. Have Laban come here. Técher, turn on the echo sounder and the radar.
Hello, Laban? Please come up here on the bridge.
Oh! Please make a radar target on the point of the reef. Put out an empty oil drum to give us a bright signal.
Okay, Captain.
Lower the white launch!
The ship must have gone down somewhere in this sector. We'll cover the area in a systematic way. All right, prepare a plotting sheet for ranges and bearings.
Grab it!
You'll be able to read your depth within 4 inches.
Naar deze kant, dus het is het beste naar de rechtse kant van het schip de stuurbord te gaan, omdat de stroming vanaf deze kant komt.
The oil drum shows up right. All ahead 1/3, steer 050.
Hi, Captain.
Zero 60, 1 mile.
Something on the bottom. That's not our wreck, it's a school of fish.
Bearing 217, range 2200.
Change course to 150.
Uncle, take over the radar, will you?
Heel langzame afdaling. Het is niet net als we gewend zijn dat we in één keer naar beneden gaan, maar je gaat heel geleidelijk naar beneden toe.
I would try the underwater chamber.
Yeah, good idea.
Is the water clear?
Yes, quite.
Fine, I'll stand by.
Bearing 208, range 2500. Two 2200.
Position?
Bearing 211, range 2600.
There she is. Dumas, see anything now?
Still nothing, but the water's changing color.
Reverse course to the left. Starboard engine ahead slow. Watch it now, Dumas. Look sharp. Fantail, Wedge. Stand by with the boy. Falco and Pig, get ready. Here she is! I see your mast! Hello, Fantail, in you go!
I joined thistlegorm in Glasgow. It was partly loaded, but the latter part of the cargo we saw being loaded was mostly ammunition. And it was quite a laugh amongst the lads at the time that if anything happened to us, if we were bombed or torpedoed, then we need parachutes, not life jackets.
Second time I joined the thistlegorm, I'd been home on leave, and when I came back to the ship, I didn't know what was in the cargo at all, because I didn't see what was being loaded on. The only thing I saw was 2 railway trains on deck, consisting of engines, tenders and tank wagons. I was 18 years of age at the time, and my job on board was a radio officer.
At the time I was 21 years old, and I've been in the merchant navy since about 1937. And she was a smart ship. I liked it. We had on occasion to join some ships in terrible condition, but I liked the thistlegorm. She looked like being a happy ship. We had 1 or 2 days in Cape Town, and 3 of the lads were missing at sailing time. Just before the ship cast off ropes, we saw them coming up the quay. One was in a wheelbarrow, and the other 2 were bringing him back to the ship. I wish they'd never made it, because later were killed, 3 of them. I wish they'd missed the ship. It was quite a happy crew. It had to be, because you were going to stay with these people for anything up to 3 years, and you couldn't afford enemies on board ship. So therefore, you sorted your differences out and settled down to whatever came. The Merchant Navy crew on the thistlegorm were quite a good crowd. There were 9 of us gunners, I recollect. There was about 35, 39 crew. And we shared stuff with them. They lent us books. We passed books around.
We played cards with them.
I recall one character on board who was a donkeyman greaser. His name was Secando and his nationality was Armenian. He used to wear a pair of big boots that he never laced up, but he had a habit of leaving his boots beside his bunk, and he would just sit on his bunk and lift his feet out of his boots, swing over, and when he came to get up again, anybody shouted him, he'd get out, swing his feet into his boots. And one day, we had wooden decks in the cabins, and one day somebody had nailed these boots to the floor. And the poor devil got out and nearly broke his ankles. But, we had quite a number of characters.
We had orders not to man our gun, not to fire our gun, that the Carlisle was the guard ship. We felt it should have been manned, but it was taken out of our hands.
We just had to wait until we were sent for. So whilst we were there, we just had to go and bear it.
Bedford trucks, locomotives, rolling stock, aeroplane parts, BSA and Norton motorcycles, Bren gun carriers, rifles, ammunition.
But we were so bored, so very hot. So we dropped a rope ladder over the side of the ship, and then we made it a rule that only one person at a time would go in to the sea. And we either jumped or dived in, and then turned around and swum like hell for the ladder, and then just jumped up because all the other lads were shouting, "Shark, shark, shark," and you didn't know whether it were true or whether they were still pulling your leg, but you didn't take a chance. Because it was so hot, it was even very hot in our quarters at night because we were in between the decks and we were surrounded by steel, small portholes, so we had very little air, especially with the ship being at anchor, no movement. So several of us gunners had brought our hammocks up from our quarters and we had slung them on deck.
The thistlegorm would be, it's very difficult to estimate distance over water, particularly at night, but I would think certainly less than half a mile. It was certainly possible to see the cranes and the ship, but we couldn't make out what was chained on the upper deck. And we could see nearly all the other ships at the anchorage and the other escorts, and both sides of the Red Sea at that point. Because of this huge moon, which was the most striking thing that I've ever seen. And probably this is why it etched itself on my memory.
It was a bright moonlight night, I remember that. And I was sleeping in my hammock, wearing just a wristwatch. My shorts were resting on top of my blanket. And a plane flew around. And it startled me, and I immediately was on my guard, but I thought, well, it can't be an enemy plane because the Carlisle should have taken over and warned us or fired.
We were able to see this plane, and it was very low and coming, as you can imagine, very fast. And it dipped over the thistlegorm about masthead height. If the wheels had been down, I would think it would have hit the mast of the thistlegorm. Of course, we couldn't fire, couldn't do anything about it, because it was not possible for us to depress the guns any further. And there would have been danger to the other ships, and indeed probably to our own stern.
So anyway, I put my shorts on, my swimming trunks on, and didn't go to a gun station because I believe the Carlisle was the guard ship and they hadn't done anything. So I just lay back again in my hammock to go back to sleep. Training, I suppose, came out and I just flung myself out of my hammock onto the deck beneath and crouched behind the winch, and then there was just 2 explosions and a massive flame and my hammock above my head caught fire.
just shook my teeth and says, come on, let's get out, we're on fire aft. I could see it was a big fire, although I didn't know what was in the holes, but that fire is big enough for me, it's serious enough, I've got to get off.
There was a young deck boy who had taken over a hammock next to me, and he was down on the deck also. Whether he had fallen down or whether it had been blown down, I don't know, but the whole ship was ablaze, and knowing the cargo we carried and ammunition, we just expected one big bang and that would be that. However, I encouraged him to come with me to the whale, and I remember thinking, my folks will never know how I died. And then we went into the water.
After I got my chief roused out of his bunk, I went down on deck and to see what was going on. And when I found out what was going on, there I saw Harry, the fiver, fifth engineer, coming along the deck. And he said to me, "Sparky, is this a fire drill?" I said, "Is it? Hell no, it's the real thing." But he was stood there in his pajama trousers. And I said to him, "Harry, you can't go on board one of His Majesty's ships dressed in pajama bottoms only." So I took him back to my cabin, which was not far away, and I gave him a suit of clothes to wear, and we went to the one remaining boat that was not smashed up.
We had a 4-inch or 4.7, I think it was, on the stern. Everything had to point to the stern, nothing had to point forward, defensively. But there were never enough gunners on watch at one time to man all the guns, so we had to train some of the merchant seamen to help us in various ways, either to pass ammunition, and so we often had to run gun drills and make it up as you went along, really.
With all that amount of fireworks down there, there was bound to be an explosion and it was burning. Someone must have had an idea it wasn't going to last all that long, because we got away.
When everybody that was congregated on the little boat deck, when everybody was accounted for and got in the boat, we pulled away then. But some of the crew who lived aft, they could not get to the boat on account of the deck being red hot to the fire. So they had to jump over the stern.
I do recall I was in the water for a period. And whilst in the water, there were a lot of these small arms or whatever they were, fire out of the hold up into the air, coming down in hot fragments onto the water, and spitting and hissing around us.
The 303 ammunition was exploding all around us. It was just like wasps going through the air, with a lot of tracer bullets. They were going off as well, and you could see those flying through the air. It was like little bees all over the place.
There was a huge sheet of flame which lit up both sides of the Red Sea at that point. We could see it light up the Mount Sinai on one side, Egypt on the other side, and all the ships and everything around. And then all of a sudden, there seemed to be a second explosion, and still looking in that direction, we were amazed to see what turned out to be a railway engine. And it was red hot, with sparks flying from it, and it was coming in our direction. By the time we had stood up and had seen the huge circle left where the railway engine went in the sea, just beyond us, of course, was the thistlegorm. And from what we could see from where we were, it seemed to fold up, and the stern went up one way and the bows went another, as that sinking ships often do, as if the back was broken, and then it went down in a V shape. And it didn't take very long. It was amazing. 1 minute it was there and the next minute it wasn't. It was as quick as that.
It was mentioned in conversation when we were lowering the boat that some of the Dems gunners had been sleeping on number 5 hatch, on the hatch. It was too hot in their accommodation and they slept on deck. And as far as we can make out, they just vanished over the side, and that was it, with the bomb blast. They just went. They weren't accounted for after. We didn't pick them up after the water. They just gone. And that was it. Couldn't do a thing for him.
One of the lads, who was a non-swimmer, had managed to get up from our quarters after the explosion, and he wouldn't go into the water because of being a non-swimmer, so they persuaded him to put the lifebelt around, and he was put in the water with this lifebelt.
We heard shouts and cries for help. And at one point, shortly afterwards, we heard someone screaming.
And everybody just froze. And somebody just said, "Shark." And we thought, poor sod, he's been taken down by a shark.
I learned later that the lifebelt had been seen. The light had been seen and lifebelt had been collected, but the lad wasn't in there. It's been somewhere around 2 hours from the time of the actual attack until I was in the sick bay of the Carlisle HMS Carlisle. The main thing that was crossing my mind was my particular pal, Fred Bevan. All I could think about was I knew I was safe, but we were very close and we had exchanged family visits. And the only thing that was really worrying me then was the fact that was Fred safe, and did I have to go home and tell his people how it had all happened and he was dead. And then the sick bay door opened again, and there was Fred standing there, absolutely stark naked. And I'm not ashamed to say that we just simply ran at each other and embraced. And I wouldn't have cared if anybody else had come off that ship apart from Fred, and he felt the same way about me. It's just the way things are, and two particular pals.
It's the only occasion in my life that I can recall shedding tears, and that is when I told my mother and father that Joe been killed together with the other fellas. I'm not given to tears, and the only time in my life that I recall shedding tears was telling them about the thistlegorm and Joe Rolfe. He was a great boy with a sense of humour. He was young, he was active, and he was dependable. I can't say any more about that. And if you needed a friend, he was the one to get.
The ship was burning amidships. There was blazing oil running down the deck, and it passed the alley door just as I got there. I made for the side to jump overboard, and the rail was almost red hot under my hand. I don't know why, but just as I was going to jump, I looked back and saw the gunner crawling along the deck. I could see him struggling under a hatch. I lifted the hatch, and it was easy for me to lift him and heave him back into the dinghy. And the skipper said, "You did good." Ah, well, I said, I didn't do it, but the one who gave me strength to do it was the Lord Jesus Christ.
We eventually landed at Port Chufik, Suez. We stayed there a couple of days, and there were three of us, just three of us left of the gunners. 5 were killed. 1 had a broken leg, fractured leg, and 3 of us walking wounded.
We had been, for want of a better word, dumped ashore in Chufik, and after contact with the consul, there was no effort made to smooth the waters at all, or even we were surplus to requirements.
Yeah, we were not treated very well. There seemed to be nobody in authority in Chufik to give us any money or any fresh clothing. We were dressed in rags. Just that the lads off the Carlisle had gone through their kit bags and given us any old jumpers, trousers, whatever that they could spare. I remember that the pair of trousers I was given, I had to cut 6 inches off the bottom with a pair of scissors. And we were worse dressed than the poverty-stricken Arabs we met.
And the boatswain took umbrage at this and decided that we would have visible proof of the condition in which we were landed.
And a photograph was taken which he said he would send to the Daily Mirror.
they just survived, and they went back and they joined the next flipping ship. And I didn't know until fairly recently that when the ship sank, the owners stopped their wages from that day. And to me, that was terrible. Yeah, I've every admiration for them.
The merchant service did a great service to the war effort, and they didn't ask for a lot of song and dance in return. I was quite happy. I've got medals in the drawer there. I don't show them because I can go down the street and buy a set like them, cheap. My name isn't on them. And if it was, I wouldn't be over that bothered about it. It doesn't bring back the friends that I lost.
There'll be many tales like this of the war, but you have your own particular feelings about these sort of things. It's just fate. I survived.